2025, and welcome to Bullcast Podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me is Court Winsett.
Hello, Katie.
And Cameron Spann.
Hello, y'all.
We're back again for another year.
Guess who's back?
Okay, so, this year we've got different themes that we're going to talk about. We've got different topics that we've already put in our pipeline. I'm going to be sharing a lot of different experiences that I'm going through right now in the financial world that is preparing for the unknowns and preparing for the where did that come from? But this episode is going to be, we're piggybacking off a list we got off of Forbes, and it's the top 10 investment themes for 2025. Now, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, some of these themes are very beefy, meaning that there's a lot of material within it. This episode is going to be much more of a higher level. We're going to briefly explain the different themes, but we could have an episode on each of these 10 themes, and we probably will for some parts of these. So just know that this is more of a higher level. We're going to kind of talk about each of the themes, but we're not going to dive real devil in the details into each of these 10 themes. Okay, so to start it off, because this is going to be a lengthy episode, we're just going to, start our year off. And what does our horoscopes predict for 2025? Which is funny that Nicole picked this as the list, because this morning I asked Alexa, hey, Alexa, what's the weather? And she rattled off the weather. And then she said, would you like to know your horoscope?
What?
Right?
Are y'all horoscope people?
No.
I think it's interesting. I have some friends that are really in depth into not just like the basic horoscope, but actually like the sun and the moon and like going real deep into like the day of the month. And yeah.
So you do it for fun. You don't have a lot of stock invested.
No. It's kind of fun with it. And I oftentimes joke that since Court and I are the same horoscope, that we share some similar personalities and that we have certain traits, but it's the same thing with like Enneagrams.
Yeah.
It's a thing that you can say, oh yeah, I'm this way because I'm a X.
You can find your truth in anything by bending it like a fortune cookie.
Exactly.
I feel a bit outnumbered here. I'm going to talk about Cancer. And then, like Katie said, you guys are Scorpio. So for Cancer, 2025 is a year of personal growth and emotional healing. Until March, Saturn's influence in your 8th house challenges you to evaluate your finances, trust in relationships, and personal passions. This period may test your courage, but it's an opportunity to build trust and work on financial matters with care.
Ooh.
From April, Saturn moves to your 9th house, encouraging spiritual and intellectual development. Trust the process, as growth will come with time and effort.
Scorpio's 2025 will bring a transition period for both personal and career growth. Saturn's transit in your 4th house until March urges you to address family matters and establish emotional stability. You may face responsibilities at home requiring patience and balance between work and family life.
Ooh.
Interesting. In April, Saturn moves to your 5th house, bringing focus to creativity and love. This period encourages you to take your personal gifts seriously and seek out genuine relationships. Gradual improvement will lead to stability. And apparently, we just don't get anything after April.
I see a crossover episode coming soon where it's like, I'm in my 8th and 9th house, you're in your 4th and 5th, like real life mortgages and like your Zodiac mortgage.
And then we're going to throw Harry Potter houses into this?
Of course, why not? All the houses.
All the houses. That was just kind of fun of what you can expect for the Bullcast team with Cancer and Scorpio. Let's discuss the major factors of 2024. Dominance of the Magnificent 7 stocks, U.S. elections, how next 4 years will look different than the prior 4. We just put 2024 in the past.
Have we ever on this show talked about the Magnificent 7? I know David does in Bull Talk a lot, and so I'm used to it. He talks about it in bullets, but I don't know if we've ever talked about it here. Does someone want to give like the quick and dirty breakdown of what that means?
Well, so the Magnificent 7 stocks are NVIDIA.
Did you just call a jargon violation?
Like in a nice way.
In a kind of ish way?
Yeah.
It's amazing we have not talked about the Magnificent 7 on this show.
I think we may have mentioned it briefly, but I don't think we've ever really dove into it.
Okay, so Court, you said NVIDIA?
Magnificent 7 are NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Tesla, and Meta. And so you'll notice that those are all tech stocks. They've been, for a good part of 2024, they were pretty dominant. They kind of, the second half of the year, it was a little bit, the headlines were taken up by the other stocks in the S&P 500. So the not so magnificent 493.
Trying to play into like the whole Avengers type, the Magnificent Seven and the not so magnificent 493.
I know we've got things to do, but another question from what you just read. We've talked about blue chip stocks on the show before. Is that synonymous with like Magnificent Seven? Are those considered blue chip stocks because they perform so well?
There's so many different phrases, and I feel like we've got an episode here, but blue chip stocks are another defining character of a certain class of stocks. And so these are typically from companies that are large, well established, and financially sound. So that doesn't necessarily mean that Magnificent Seven, blue chip stocks, because then you've also got dividend paying stocks. And so there's a ton of different categories you can have within that. Growth stocks, aggressive growth stocks. It's different characteristics. So
Gotcha.
NVIDIA, at one certain point may be classified as, growth, aggressive, or it could be blue chip. Or there's so many different characteristics that one individual stock could have underneath it.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So like we said, there's a lot of sidebar conversations we can have with this episode. We're going to try and wrangle it back in so it's not so many rabbit holes we're going down. Top investment themes for 2025. Bull market and earning growth expansion. The bull market's growth depends on continued earning expansion, which gained momentum in the late 2024 and is forecasted to carry through 2025, with the S&P 500 earnings projected to grow 15%. Opportunities lie in the U.S. mid-cap, small-cap, and international developed markets. So again, Cam, that's kind of some other definitions of the mid-cap, small-cap, international, tech stocks, because Court earlier said, those are tech stocks. So there's classifications you can have within each individual stocks itself. But so opportunities lie in U.S. mid-cap, small-cap, and international developed market stocks with strong dividends. I like to tell people dividends kind of like you're getting a little slice of the pie. You're getting paid a little bit of something, whether it's monthly, quarterly, annually, for also owning that stock. So you get the growth, but you also can then get a dividend. So it's going to be based on strong dividends, performance histories, and total return potential. So that's one of the investment themes. Second investment theme, and then I'm going to let you guys take over some of these. The long game of artificial intelligence investing.
AI.
AI is definitely, again, we've talked about AI. It's not necessarily a new thing, but it really is the buzzword.
It is relatively new in the sense that we actually see a very real future with AI becoming a dominant technology.
Yes.
It is also the area where a lot of people are predicting basically our next war, if you will, as a nation. America's next big battle will be a battle in AI and in the development of AI. And whether we're a leader or, frankly, it's pretty specifically China that we're going to be battling in this particular area with. And a lot of the tech people, a lot of the tech bros, tech people out in Silicon Valley are very eager to make sure that we are on the cutting edge of this technology and that we do not lose to China in its development and or its proliferation and or its execution, just all of it. And because of that, a lot of them are saying we don't need a lot of regulation on this. We need to have the freedom to expand this. And, that's where people start getting nervous.
Yeah.
But it's definitely
it's a space race.
Yeah.
You think about it. We had the space race of America trying to be the winner of that. So what Court's talking about.
It's already impacted the way a lot of us do business. Will continue to impact the way a lot of people do business. You will see changes in the way people are researching, changes in the way they're obviously writing, changes in the way they're pretty much doing anything just on the
Machine learning.
Yeah, machine learning, generative
AI.
Yeah. That's going to be pushing our economy. I don't know what kind of direction in 2025, but it's definitely going to have an impact for sure.
I like this exact line from Forbes article. I believe that we are just in batting practice of a doubleheader with so many more opportunities that lie ahead in the development and application of AI.
Mm-hmm.
That really explains it. That, look, we're just getting started with this. According to Faced, as of June 11, 2024, the global AI market is expected to reach $1.81 trillion by 2030 with a 36.6% compound annual growth rate. So, I mean, this is definitely an area that we're looking at. Obviously, we talked about Magnificent Seven. NVIDIA is a part of that. That's one of the big AI stocks right now.
Well, and one of the things that Forbes says is don't spend your time looking for the next NVIDIA because it is such a developing area. The return on investments in any sort of AI stocks right now, AI-related stocks right now, may be a longer-term thing. So depending on what your immediate goals are, if your immediate goal is fast growth, then we may not see fast growth in AI-related stocks for a few years.
Yeah, and that's, again, why it's important when this is the top 10 investment themes for 2025. So this is those long-term strategies. As opposed to, like Court said, opposed to finding the next NVIDIA or the other hot chip or semiconductor companies, because that's the other ones that are really big. They should consider potential investment opportunities in the entire AI ecosystem, which is comprised of data centers, software, hardware, chips, semiconductors. Data centers have become a critical component of the AI ecosystem. I mean, just like anything you think about it, it's one of those, when we have supply chains, you're going to then need the trucks, you're going to need the different plants that are producing the products to create an item. And so that's where you can really diversify, which is another big important thing with investing. Then, there's things to look at with this. But AI is definitely a hot topic for 2025.
Indeed.
Yeah, the third top investment theme for 2025, according to Forbes, is increased investment in defense and security. That's really interesting, very niche. But it says U.S. defense and national security needs to focus on replenishment, upgrades and modernization, addressing gaps in naval readiness, advancing missile defense systems highlighted by recent conflicts, and integrating cutting-edge technologies like autonomous systems, drones, to meet evolving global threats.
Well, so U.S. defense spending to rise annually, reaching $1.1 trillion by 2034. It's a 20% increase from 2023, 263% increase since the year 2000.
Wow.
I find this particular headline, if you will, this number in the top 10, interesting because they just recently announced that there's been a purchase order has been placed by the Department of Defense for, I can't remember the exact number, but we'll say it was around like 45 or 46 F-35 airplanes for the Air Force, the Navy, and the Marines. They're also selling some to our allies, but this is a plane that has been a hot button issue. A lot of people don't think that we should be spending as much money as we are on these F-35s. They are a fifth generation plane. If you watched Top Gun Maverick, right, the enemy was flying. They made a big deal out of the fact that the enemy was flying fifth-gen planes, and our people were flying in fourth-gen planes. And then, of course, at the very end, there's a callback to the original Top Gun when Tom Cruise's character Maverick has to fly an F-14 against a fifth-gen plane, and it's like, oh, so these fifth-gen planes are really, really spectacular. I mean, the things that they can do in a fifth-gen plane are amazing, but a lot of people say that we don't need to be investing more money in building more fifth-gen planes when we could be investing more money in developing a sixth-generation plane or in autonomous vehicles like drones, because those, you don't have to have a pilot. Technically, there is somebody flying that drone. There's somebody back in a trailer somewhere
but they're
flying
not
a drone.
in it yet.
Yeah, you have this sort of tug of war of, do we develop a sixth-gen? Do we develop drone technology? Do we spend the country's money? And I mean, when you're saying that there are 45 F-35s being built, that's billions of dollars we're talking about spending, because each F-35 is really, really expensive. All of that building, all of these planes are being built by Lockheed Martin. So I'm bringing it back around. The reason I found that so interesting is because I read an article today. There was an article today on the prospects of Lockheed Martin as a potential stock buy. And, I was like, this has to be coming up because they just announced this contract for the new F-35s. But yeah, I think defense spending is going to blossom a lot here in 2025.
So I've got 2 points on that. One side note is what Court just said is a lot of times when you see these articles, you see things about like, oh, this is going to be the stock pick. You need to dig deeper and ask the question on like, why are these things now popping up? Like there's always going to be some reason of why this has become popularity, why this is becoming the pick. My other thing that, this is particularly talking about defense and security in the protection aspect, but we just talked about AI. There needs to be a lot of security aspects and a lot of things thinking about the security protecting from the AI. And I know there's been a lot of kind of rumor mill going around about like these electric cars, these Teslas that can drive themselves and things like that, and making sure we're getting protection so somebody doesn't hack into a Tesla database system and then the cars take over.
Well, for anybody who's been paying attention, just to sort of bring this back to our pop culture roots.
Okay.
If you were paying attention to two things that we just talked about, defense spending, drones, and AI, we're just rocketing towards Terminator. Judgment Day.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's kind of starting to get crazy that some of these action movies and stuff, we're starting to see some real life. But obviously, there's got to be equal protection and security in place.
Okay, so the next...
Number 4.
Number 4, yeah. Fed adopts more gradual pace toward interest rate cuts. Forbes is forecasting that Fed rate will cut. Forbes is forecasting the Fed rate is cut forecast is going to be 50 BP cuts in both 2025 and 2026, following 100 BP cuts in late 2024. BP
You're
cuts,
not saying blood pressure.
No, technically, I think that we're supposed to say it as bips. You know, it's 50 bips in 25 and 50 bips in 26 after 100 bips in 24.
That sounds like a lot of jargon.
Yeah, what is a bip? BP stands for
Basis point.
Basis point, and it is a basically 1.1%. So if they cut the rate by 0.25%, then they're cutting the rate by 25 basis points or bips. And in 2024, they cut the Fed rate once by 50 points, just like out of the gate, they went 50 right off the top. And then they've cut it by 25 2 more times. So a total of 100 basis points in 2024. And they're saying that basically what Forbes is saying is that in 2025, you could probably expect only 50. Now, I will also argue that our incoming president is going to want to see that rate cut even more.
Yeah,
and you're probably going to hear him talk about that.
Yeah, that's obviously a big conversation. That's what people, again, thinking about the Fed, that's all a ripple effect with loans, with housing, things like that. So it all flows together. Okay, number 5. Large cap pharma turns to small cap biotech for answers. Large cap pharmaceutical companies face, I feel like I'm doing a commercial right now. Large cap pharmaceutical companies facing growing challenges, including pressure on profit margins due to drug pricing reforms and the expiration of patents on major revenue generating drugs, which opens the door to generic competitions. Whoa. Okay, I mean, drugs is definitely another thing, and talking about how expensive healthcare is and the medications. So this is a big topic for 2025. To address these hurdles, many large cap pharma companies are turning to innovative healthcare solutions developed by a smaller cap biotech firm. These firms are advancing groundbreaking technology such as gene therapies, RNA therapeutics, precision oncology, and obesity drug breakthroughs.
Like the GLP-1 that we talked about before.
We talked about that with Dr. Finks. Yeah. In 2024, there were 36 biotech M&A transactions totaling $45 billion. What is M&A?
Merger and acquisition.
That's what I was thinking it was, but thank you for calling me on that. With an impressive average premium of 83%. Looking ahead to 2025, analysts expect activity in biotech to be growing, focusing on firms with strong FDA approval pipelines, particularly in areas like rare diseases, RNA-based therapies, and advanced immunotherapy.
The small cap biotech companies that investors might be looking at, if they're in the advanced FDA approval phases, those companies that are in the advanced part of the FDA approval process, the later phases, those would be the ones that people would be probably looking at because they're the most likely to get approval soon and start growth.
Yeah. So again, this is a whole episode in itself that I think we can really dive into the drugs aspect.
Oh man, let me say this one just because I love saying munis.
It's so fun. Take number 6, Court.
Munis. Number 6, munis are poised to perform.
Municipal bonds.
Municipal bonds, tax-free income. Buy a muni and you get coupon payments or tax-free income for you. They're basically saying that they're poised to perform. What does that mean? I guess here's their explanation for it. Strong balance sheets for local and state governments coupled with positive economic outlook should bolster municipal tax revenues in the new year. Additionally, tax equivalent yields for municipal bonds are near 15-year highs. That's providing some compelling opportunities for income-oriented investors. A lot of people buy munis when they've got a lot of money and they don't want to be taxed.
Yeah, as I say, municipal bonds are for certain particular investors in certain situations. Again, all of this we've been talking about, make sure it fits your financial plan personally.
It does go on to say concerns over the potential repeal of the municipal bond tax exemption have diminished. Well, you can imagine why. Anytime you shift from a more left-leaning administration and or Congress to a more right-leaning administration and or Congress, and in this case, we're shifting from a left presidency to a right presidency along with a full right Congress. So you're going to have a House and Senate and a president that can all agree on stuff for about 2 years, hypothetically. So anyway, one of the things that pretty much you can always count on is you're not going to see a lot of tax increases during this next 2-year term, because if anything, they're going to be looking to make President Trump's cuts from his first presidency permanent, or at least make them the taxes for the tax rates for the next 10 years. They've also talked about lowering rates for businesses again and so forth. So what you will not see is things like exemptions that people have currently going away, or at least that's not what people are expecting.
Number 7 on the list would be financials rebound, including regional banks. The factors that contributed to the regional banking crisis have largely eased, with short-term interest rates declining and forecasted to drop further, U.S. Treasury prices rising, and improved prospects for economic growth and reduced regulation under the Trump administration. All these changes set the stage for significant industry consolidation through increased mergers and acquisitions, M&A, which we just talked about, with streamlined approval processes expected this year and next year. So regional banks began rebounding in the latter half of 2024, and this recovery is poised to continue, offering further growth potential in 2025.
Again, these last two we talked about are episodes within themselves. Lots of information, so do not feel overwhelmed if you're like not really sure what all this means.
What the heck are they saying?
We're trying to give you some
All
highlights.
the words.
Yep. Number 8, preferred benefit from financial rebounds and lower interest rates. This is piggybacking off of what Cam just talked about. Preferred securities, combining bonds and stock features, offered fixed income, trade on exchanges, often pay higher dividends than common shares on bonds. Though underutilized by investors, they present income and growth opportunities. After a pullback during the 2023 regional banking crises, regional banking crisis, factors caused the decline have eased, creating appealing entry points and potential for recovery and return. Okay.
So what did this say? What did this say? Let's really take it down to its basic point.
What did it say, Court?
What is it we're doing? We're doing the top 10 investment themes for 2025. Apparently what they're saying is preferred stock will be one of the big themes of the 2025.
Which then is another category of kind of, you got ordinary stocks, you got common stock, preferred stock.
Yeah, because when you said preferred securities combining bond and stock features, offered fixed income, trade on exchanges, and often pay higher dividends than common shares or bonds, people are like, huh? Yeah. Okay, when you have a preferred share of stock, it's basically an income stock. You are going to be, I assume the reason that they call it a preferred stock share is because you are preferred as a recipient of a dividend payment before common shareholders will ever get a dividend payment. So you get your dividend first.
So you could buy, for instance, you could buy JP Morgan, you could buy preferred stock, or you could buy common stock. There's lots of different ones that you could do that. And so make sure that when you're working with your financial professionals, when you're looking at your financial plan, you figure out which stock fits you best.
Yeah.
Because they have different features.
The preferred share is providing you with an income source. You're not guaranteed a dividend, but you will be in the preferred position to receive a dividend if they are paying one.
Yeah.
A lot of times that dividend will be higher than whatever, you may get, whatever.
So then you're with everything, you're weighing your options of, do you want more of that income coming in? Do you want more potential for the growth on the stock itself? So that's 2 out of the 10 that's really talking about kind of what's going on with the banking industry, and then also kind of what's changing up a little bit with the stocks.
Thank you for summarizing that, because when you were reading the little synopsis of it, I had like the glassy dead eyes, like I was in the Polar Express movie.
Did I sound like Charlie Brown's teacher?
Okay, you mentioned earlier data centers when we were talking about AI. One of the big news here in Memphis recently was that XAI, which is another one of Elon Musk's companies, opened up a center of operations here and built the world's biggest supercomputer.
Wonder if Elon's had rendezvous.
And so One of the big discussions with this opening of XAI is he has to power it. It's the biggest supercomputer ever. Well, it's got to be powered. And of course, if you have to have power.
I don't know. I just have to do a side note. Do y'all watch Landman?
No.
I've seen 2 episodes.
Okay, well, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's about oil. Very interesting because there's a rant he goes on about the eco power and like the windmills and stuff like that. And so, but keep going, Court. We'll talk about Landman when people have maybe watched it a little bit more.
Okay.
Sorry, when you said power, that immediately went in my head was Billy Bob Thornton on a rant.
Their next big investment theme for 2025 is power. They're basically saying that your power providers are going to be big performers as these data centers crop up that require more power. And you're probably going to start seeing some diversification of the way that we develop power, of the sources of power, nuclear. I've heard a lot of talk lately about a sort of a return to nuclear, windmills, stuff like that. All of that is going to be coming back up. There's going to be a tremendous demand for electricity, basically.
Yeah. Solar had its moment. Now we're moving back to wind, water, and nuclear.
I mean, that's with that. There's going to be a lot of uproar from the different sides about clean energy, and green, and stuff like that. And so it's a constant thing. But it's kind of like a lot of other big topics that are not talked about in this. But there's glowing things that come across every year that it's like we can't keep pushing this to the side. We have got to start addressing this stuff. That's why I kind of joke a little bit. But if you watch Landman, he strongly talks about how we have got to start addressing power.
Yep. You ready to wrap up the list here?
I mean,
with number 10.
Number 10.
And this is actually just solid advice in general. Expect more short-term bouts of volatility, but don't abandon stocks. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but do not freak out. So expect more short-term volatility this year compared to last year, which saw historically low market swings and rich valuations. While smaller-scale corrections may provide attractive entry points, investors should avoid market timing and focus on long-term goals.
Yes.
Thank you. Like, oh my gosh, this is what we preach all the time. And that's be honest with your financial professionals you're working with. If they ask you the question of, do you foresee needing this money in the next 6 months or the next year? Like, we're asking you that for a reason because we're trying to make sure we invest you the best way possible. Ultimately, our goal is your best interest. What does your funds need to do for you? And it's not worth it for you to be like, oh, but I want to be risky. I want to try and, get as much as possible. Remember what we talked about. Some of these things are long-term and you can't expect it to be like the casinos and you put your dollars down and then instantly, boom, there you go. It's not how it works.
Yeah, Forbes gives a few helpful ideas about managing risk, maintaining steady progress. It would be a balanced approach using strategies like equal-weighted portfolios, covered calls, or defensive stocks. Now, what are covered calls?
Oh, that's
you don't want to go into that.
I mean,
I've never heard of it before.
Back that one up.
for our purposes, that's probably a little bit heavier than we want to get into today. But it is.
That's a great one. Let's put a pin in it.
Well,
I think it's something we could talk about. But covered calls is definitely something that, again, something you work with your financial professional to see if that's something that fits within your wheelhouse. But I mean, like they say, managing risk, maintain steady progress. Again, I have to pitch at this point, being upfront with all of your different investments, all your clear picture, which is why we are a planning firm that likes to really look at your entire picture. So even if we don't hold all your investments, we at least know you're super risky with them. So maybe we need to be the more conservative ones. Like it's got to be a balanced approach. Because if you don't tell us you've got $100,000 in, one particular stock outside from us, that can really shape how we invest you as well.
Well, that's quite a list, Forbes.
It's a lot. There is a lot in that.
That's a lot of information. I hope that we didn't just completely get bogged down in technical terms. I couldn't just reading from Forbes. A lot of times Forbes writes to a level where they assume that you know what they're talking about when they say things like covered calls and stuff.
They write to the savvy investor.
They do write to the more savvy investor.
But hey, it gives us a lot of content for this year.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's, again, we agree that there's a lot to this, and I don't fully expect you to walk away knowing the ins and outs of it, but maybe you at least understand the key highlights of AI and defense and, taking a different look at some of the stocks and what type of securities you're going to hold this year and the potentials for what's going on with pharmaceuticals and munis, as Court likes to shorten it. So we just got to talk about alts, and then we got the munis and the alts.
And then, oh man, we're just going to be on fire. It's going to be great.
Alts would be alternatives, but that's a whole other episode as well.
Indeed, yeah. The bullseye would be, it's the second day of the year. If you're
We made
listening
it.
to us on Thursday when we come out, then you're listening to us on the second day of 2025. And our best wishes to everyone out there for a fantastic 2025. If it goes by any faster than 2024 did, I'm going to have whiplash by the end of this year. Because 2024 went by crazy fast.
So fast.
So fast. Oh, there's the closing bell. Ladies and gentlemen, you've made it to the end of yet another episode of the Bullcast Podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast delivered to you every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cortland, Katie, Cameron, or Nicole, please feel free to go to our website. That website is bullcastpodcast.com. We've got pictures up there. We've got bios. We've also got a place where you can drop a comment or suggest a topic you'd like to hear us talk more about. I mentioned pictures. We do have pictures, and if you like pictures, we have an Instagram handle that is at Bullcast Podcast, and we also have an X handle, which is conveniently at Bullcast Podcast as well. Then we have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Bullcast the Podcast. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors, and if you would like to find out more about that company, find out even more information about us than you ever probably wanted to know, find out about what we can do for you, find out about our amazing team, and find out about our boss, David Pickler, please feel free to go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have given you a whole lot to chew on for this year. So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Katie.
I'm Cam.
And we're done.